Hello and welcome to Savvy Seniors. I'm Mary Dilley.
And I'm Jeanette Bach.
And we have a special guest joining us today. Sarah Sunnucks is a funeral director with Smith's Funeral Home. And we have relied and depended on Sarah for a number of years now. When we send a client to Sarah, we always know they're in great hands. And through that process, Sarah has also become a personal friend of ours now. We're delighted to have you here today, Sarah.
Thank you.
So recently, I had a little adventure with Sarah, and I have to tell you, I was pleasantly surprised how much fun we had. I went into Smith's Funeral Home and prepaid and pre-planned my final destination. And it was easy. I was surprised at how easy it was, how comfortable I was, and how great I felt afterwards. I'm the one that always says, eat the cookie, because life's short and you never know what's gonna happen. You could get hit by a bus tomorrow. And I walked out of there thinking to myself, honest to God, I could really get hit by a bus tomorrow and I don't have to worry about a thing. So that was a great process. Thank you for that.
Oh, well, hopefully you don't get hit by a bus anytime soon, and that's not gonna happen if you pre-plan, but it is so comforting to get your wishes on paper, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Sarah, is it really that easy?
It is. It's actually the hardest part is making the phone call and making the appointment. That is actually the hardest part of this whole pre-planning of a funeral, because you're having to actually commit that this is something you're going to do.
So is really that how you get started? Is giving you a call to set up an appointment?
So our appointments are free. They're no obligation. You can sit with me and we can chat about basically anything under the sun, really. I can talk to you about trends in the funeral home, things that people are doing, different ideas. Is it legal? Is it not legal? And then we can actually write down your wishes. We can write down what the government needs, so we don't have to ask your kids what your mother's maiden name was. And we can really put together a plan and how to execute it when the time comes, and does that make sense, does it not make sense? And then we can do a contract. We can get all the money set aside. It can be probate free, money for your executors, and it actually isn't that lengthy of a discussion, depending on your wishes, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I was surprised at how inexpensive it was. I was quite surprised. Yeah.
So can you give me an idea? Like, what do funeral costs run approximately? I know there's a range.
So a lot of people are that come in, the first thing they'll say, well, cremation's the cheapest, right? That's what the impression is. But when you talk about services, memorialization, parties, catering, you know, it can start to add up. So it really does depend on what you want and what you select. We have a caterer that has a liquor license. You know, we have a facility you can rent for the day. We've
done that. We've actually done that at Smith's Funeral Home. That was fun.
Yes. We have a chapel. You can have a service. During COVID, when the churches were closed, we could still have your full service at our situation at Guelph Line. We have lots of parking. So we can do as much or as little as you wish. And if you do want to select things that are, you know, more inexpensive, that's whatever your wishes are.
That sounds pretty easy. Lots of options. I love that. So I understand when you prepay. Can you explain to me what happens to that money if I move, and what happens with my money at that time?
Now, I also asked that question because I said to Sarah, if I should meet Mr. Dilley number 4,
right,
and he whisks me away to Hawaii or Belize or Costa Rica and I'm no longer living in Canada, that was one of the first questions I asked too. And I was pleasantly surprised at the answer.
So in the funeral home industry, we actually legally have to put your money into a third-party investment. We can't put it into our bank account before a death. And that's really for your protection as the customer. If you were ever to move anywhere in Canada, or if the funeral home were to ever close down or be sold, your money is safe in that investment. And basically what would happen at that point is we would let you know, you can transfer that fund to another funeral home, you can cancel, get all your money back plus all your interest. That's secured, so we don't keep any of it. or you can put it into another funeral home anywhere in Canada. So we have a few people moved to Nova Scotia recently, right? So we've just moved their whole plan there, and it was no problem for them at all. We sent all the file down, and they were able to just move it there. Cemetery is a little bit different in that you've got a plot of land, but definitely at the funeral home, we're very flexible with your plans. Now, if you were to go to the States, however, it's a little bit different. We would cancel and all your money would come back to you plus interest, whatever's been put into that investment.
Right. And at the end of the process, when we filled out all the paperwork, what I really liked was I went home with a file folder. And so I have everything in there. I even got, Sarah gave me cards for my kids to put in their wallets. So that when it happens, all my kids have to do is call Sarah or Smith's Funeral Home, and it's all taken care of. When my parents died, I had to pick out the caskets for both of them. And that was the worst thing I've ever had to do. That was the hardest thing. And I overspent. Honest to God. You know, that's my mother. She's getting the best. And so it was really important for me to do this with Sarah so that my kids don't have to do that. And it was funny because I picked out the cardboard box because I'm going to have the best party ever. You want to come because it's going to be really, and bring a friend because it's going to be good. But I wanted the cardboard box, and it was interesting because Sarah and I walked through the room with all the caskets, and I said, well, where's mine? Where's my cardboard box? And Sarah said, oh, it's there. And I went, oh. Oh dear. But I stuck to it because that's what I wanted. But I never want my children to have to make that decision for me.
My office is actually right beside the selection room. So anytime someone has to go in there, I know they're not pre-planned. And so that's what gives me the motivation to meet with families, because I think even with cremation, you need some sort of casket. We still call it a casket, but some sort of casket. So we have to bring your family into that selection room regardless.
Right.
Regardless. So the only way to stop your family from having to make that step is to pre-plan it.
Yep. I've even gone so far as to say with Sarah that when the cremation happens, I do not want my kids, and I say kids, they're 32 and 30, and by the time I die, they're going to be 74 and 70. But I've even said to them, to Sarah, that I do not want them going up to Milton to see the cremation. Like I've put my wishes in.
See, that's fantastic that you've done that prior to, because what I see is this really challenging time when your loved one has passed away, and now all of a sudden you're forced to make all of these decisions, and there's a lot of guilt that goes along with it, and a lot of trepidation, quite honestly, making these big decisions on behalf of your loved one. Whereas when they've made it themselves, it's done, it's completed. And my father did that with my mother. And when he passed, I still had to go in and answer some questions. And I was thankful that most of everything had already been done. So it was a huge weight off my shoulders, for sure.
I can absolutely attest that I feel absolutely fabulous about this now. I feel really good.
Yeah, usually when I sit with a family, I'll try to do as much as possible, because I think, okay, what are the biggest things we can accomplish together?
Yeah, you were amazing.